Hello and welcome to today's program. I am Ogechukwu Ukegwe. The Nigerian Biological Safety Association has warned Nigeria to be on alert of the Ebola outbreak in some African countries, including Uganda, Kampala. The viral disease, which is transmitted through contact with infected persons or animal fluid, such as blood, saliva, urine, semen, or feces, was experienced in 2014, Nigeria as part of the larger West African epidemic that occurred between 2013 and 2016. The President's Nigerian Biometric Safety Association, Stella Udo, said the Uganda government has confirmed an outbreak on 30th January in Kampala. She said, though no outbreak in West Africa yet, but Nigeria should be cautious and immediately report any suspicious symptoms to the relevant government agencies. And the National Agency for Food and Drug Administration and Control has proposed the death penalty for drug peddlers. The Director General of the agency, Mojisola Adeyeye, made this call while speaking to newsmen. She urged that only strict penalties would deter drug peddlers, especially when their actions result in the death of children. The NAFDAC boss also called for the cooperation of the judiciary and the National Assembly to make the proposal of reality. According to her, the agency is open to working with lawmakers and other stakeholders on the matter. And the Resource Center for Human Rights and Civic Education has reaffirmed the unwavering commitment to the eradication of female genital mutilation practices across the country and other borders in West Africa. The group made this known in a statement to mark this year's International Day of Zero Tolerance for Female Genital Mutilation. According to the statement, female genital mutilation is not merely a cultural issue. It is a profound violation of human rights that inflicts severe physical and psychological harm on countless women and girls. We'll take a break now and the program will return shortly. Welcome back. The U.S. government has halted the support for HIV treatment in Nigeria and other developing countries, following an order by President Donald Trump. The U.S. State Department supported the disbursement of funds from the President's Emergency Plan for AIDS Relief program in HIV treatment in Africa and developing countries for at least 90 days. The action originates from President Trump's executive order on foreign aid, which he signed on his first day in office. The order instructed all government agencies managing foreign development assistance programs to halt the disbursement of funds. While joining me on the program to discuss further is the general practitioner at Ferroproid Medical Center, Dr. Baron Bless. Thank you for joining us on the program. So the U.S. government has halted the support for HIV treatment in Nigeria and other developing countries. How does this halting of HIV funding affect global health targets, particularly in terms of ending the HIV and AIDS epidemic?
Hello, good afternoon. Okay, nice to be in the program today. Yes, about the issue of the halting of the funding for HIV. In most countries, not only in Nigeria, as the case may be. It's obvious because the US is arguably the largest funder for health reliefs, health-related concerns, and curbing of highly communicable disease in the world. So if the US is pulling out of such a big responsibility, definitely goes without saying that we are going to have some increase in infection rates, and if we're not careful, this might spiral out of control. But I'm very confident that the world leaders are planning very well. All stakeholders are still on the issue to make sure that we don't end up to that bus stop. Thank you.
How challenging has the issue of HIV for funding for HIV and AIDS treatment been before now?
Okay, before now, the funding for HIV HIV and all that, without saying, very minute. In fact, I would say countries were just, doing guesswork with whatever they have to do with, the funding of this. So before the United States Agency for International Development, which was launched in 2003, before now, the funding for specific diseases like HIV was, I would say, less than 5% of what it is today, because we saw the disease was ravaging the world, especially on the developed countries like DRC Congo, South Africa, Nigeria, Sudan, and a lot of countries, developing countries, especially in Africa. So before now, we had little to no funding for curbing these viruses, especially in this case HIV. And it goes without mentioning, we have to know why these things were put in place. The United States Agency for International Development was founded in 2003 with the aim of supplementing, putting a form of subsidy to healthcare. So it is not it is on to forever. It was a chipping in the aid the United States, the great nation of the United States, had to give as the major foreign uh, foundation health interest all over the world. So these the US aid was put there to cushion the effect of these infections and these viruses and various diseases. It goes without saying, not only HIV, we talk about tuberculosis and the monkeypox and various diseases, including the avian virus, from which we now have the human metapneumovirus. So it's really spiraling out of control right now. So that is where we are coming from. So if we understand where we are coming from, we will know where we are right now and where we're going. And it goes without saying that the United States has spent more than $160 billion through the same funding we're talking about to all countries that are stakeholders and beneficiaries from this particular funding.
So what effect would this withdrawal of the program have on Nigeria, given that it is Nigeria is one of the countries with the highest HIV burden globally, and millions of Nigerians rely on this program for life-saving medications and healthcare infrastructure?
So, what effect with the cut of this funding, withdrawal of this one, or the pause of this one, as the case may be, for Nigeria? Specifically, Nigeria have over 1 million people living with HIV/AIDS, and receiving and benefiting from these drugs. That has obviously put them, extended their lives, and put them in a comfortable place to live with their family, loved one, without any form of social stigma. So, number one, is going to increase the rates of social stigma against people living with HIV/AIDS. It's going to affect them. Number two, talking about the acquiring of these antiretroviral drugs for treatment. The acquiring of it is very expensive, very expensive. I was speaking to a patient that was, I think, a week ago, and the patient came with some symptoms, and we ran some tests, and we found that the patient had contracted the HIV virus. And I had to break the news to this patient, and I had to counsel the patient on the availability of help. Now, I don't how would the patient take this, saying that, oh, the only help that should be available has been taken away? So a lot of psycho emotional downpour is going to definitely come into the picture. Other things, how it's going to affect this patient is because we measure the viral load. So if a patient takes their drugs consistently, it reduces their viral load to the point where we call undetectable. Undetectable meaning the amount of virus present in the patient's body, as the case may be, or the system, is not so much that to cause acute infection to somebody or to their partner also. So imagine right now the patient can access these antiretroviral drugs for treatment, taking down their viral load is going to spiral. The infection rate is going to increase, and as the case may be right now, a lot of people living with the virus HIV virus are panicking all over the country.
What actions do you think the government in these affected countries can take to mitigate the effect of the loss of funding?
Okay, talking about the actions the government in the affected countries like Nigeria, DRC, that's the Congo, which is currently still having some form of civil war, South Africa, Sudan. What the government can do is I would say is what they would have done before now. What they would have done before now. It's like the US is like it's like having a big brother that's always funding you, taking care of your needs and stuff. And now you are growing to become an adult, and that big brother lets you off the leash and say, okay, you know what? You are grown now, you can do things yourself. So it is about what they would have been doing before now. So it has been 20 years. PEFA, that's the presidential emergency plan for its relief. 20 years it has been. I think that was enough time for these countries, including Nigeria, to have, created platform research, made available industries that could produce these drugs. However, we are in the case now where we don't have most of those things in place. So what would they do? Simple. Increase funding to the health sector. I would say, okay, if I give you the opportunity, I say, okay, I'm going to give you $10 million today, but you die tomorrow. Will you take that offer? No. You have to think of the future. So these countries affected right now should invest in health, the health sector, invest in making producing facilities, infectious disease facilities that are well equipped to deal with this. Emergency funds, and also something I think we also help is seeking help from other bodies. We have the UN aid. The UN aid is there. We also have China aid, so they can also seek help from these bodies. But because the most of these countries have been, so intertwined like a spaghetti into the system, and the help coming from the US aid, and it's difficult for them now to look for alternatives. So these are what the major thing they need to do. All stakeholders, the government, the Federal Ministry of Health, is to increase funding for the health sector, increase funding, get appropriate, intelligent minds that can handle the situations. And before you see, it's just going to be history, because I'm very confident in Nigeria's ability to cope this. Nigeria is a rich nation with a lot of intelligent people that are ready to make these things happen. So the government needs to find out these people, bring them together, put our heads together, and we'll get things over with.
So how will this funding cuts impact HIV prevention program, especially those at high risk population in developing countries?
So how will this funding, how is going to affect these countries, especially with those people living with HIV in these countries? Well, I will say this: we have a cross section of social affectation. It's going to affect the social picture, and the interaction between the people living with HIV and those living without HIV in those countries. Is going to affect the social interaction, because now there is going to be a huge social stigma, social stigma in this country, especially in Nigeria. In Nigerians, very self-protective and stuff like that. Be like, oh, if you find out that somebody is living with AIDS, you'd be like, oh, I don't want to have anything to do with you, because even if I contact the disease, there's nothing to help me with. I can't afford it because they are expensive. These drugs are expensive. So the US aid are training people to work in providing these services. So if there's no funding for these services, those people are going to lose their job. So we have increased unemployment rates. That aside, we have cases where services reaching out to remote areas, the funding providing services to remote areas, and funding for researches to improve and actually eradicate AIDS is not there anymore. All these services are going to be halted. They are going to be stopped, as the case may be. However, I would like to mention, I think it was 8th of February, the United States secretary came out to announce a waiver. He announced a waiver for I think about 30 days. Within the 90 days, the funding for PEPFAR is currently going. He announced a kind of waiver, but they highlighted what this waiver is for. So the waiver is not actually going to cover those currently living with AIDS, but it's only going to cover situations of mother-child trans infection. So for pregnant women, so it's going to prevent prophylaxis for pregnant women. So it goes without saying, those already living with AIDS, they are going to go to the clinics and they find out their drugs are no longer there. There's going to be social panic everywhere. So something the international body, the UN-AIDS, has to collaborate with the US government, meet the president, and really discuss these things in extension to see how we can extend this waiver and extend this period of tossing these funds.
Could the reduction in funding lead to a rise in stigma or discrimination against those living with the virus, especially if access to treatment becomes more limited?
Yes, it goes without saying. Socioeconomic is going to affect. Is going to spiral. If not watched closely, it's going to spiral out of control. We have to understand clearly what is going on here. Apart from the social stigma that is going to create, the United States Agency for International Development is actually funded by taxpayers' money in the United States. And you have a president who came with a manifesto to make America great again. And he's doing everything necessary to pull back funds in the current economic struggle they are having with big world powers like China. So the president is doing what he thinks is better for his country. However, affecting these people. We have parents, for example, having kids. How are they going to care for their kids? Because right now they are scared. If I'm not taking my drugs for at least 1 month, talking about 3 months, will I be able to take care of my children? Are they at risk of contracting this disease? So it goes without saying, social stigma is going to skyrocket. Boom! It's going to skyrocket like something we've never seen before concerning HIV.
What alternative sources of funding do you think could step in to help cover the gap left by the US withdrawal? Or is this a significant loss for this country, especially Nigeria?
Yes, I think we can try, the government and stakeholders meet. The federal executive council can meet. We have very intelligent people that can meet and discuss alternatives to create funding for this particular acute situation we are having right now. There is the China aid. However, if you are going for China aid, know that China also have their foreign policies and bilateral agreements that you have to sign. There is the United Nations aid. If you are going there to seek for funds for this issue, you are also going to make some form of agreement, some form of treaties to sign. We have NGOs, private NGOs, and also some philanthropies, private funded organizations that the government could actually approach to help. However, I think the government, I'm talking about Nigeria as the case may be, can also restructure their allocated funding towards the federal health sector. If they can restructure that funding, I believe there will be some fund that can be now diverted towards this area to curb the acute situation. So we can get it. We can get it. Think about it. Nigeria was operating under fuel subsidy. The federal government was subsidizing billions of dollars for fuel. That's why Nigerians were getting fuel cheap. So if the federal government can subsidize billions of dollars for the subsidy of fuel, what about health? Human health. Oh, come on, they can do it. The government can do it. So I believe that is a source of fund that could really help us.
So the federal government approved the 4.8 billion for HIV and AIDS funding. So what's your reaction to this, bearing in mind that the approval came just after US President Donald Trump's directive?
Yes, I would say, like I said before, I'm confident in the ability of the federal government of Nigeria to curb the current situation. However, seeing that the Federal Council Commission met and 4.8 billion naira was allocated towards to curb the current situation, and I think if you convert that right now with the current rate to be about, let me say, it should be $3 million. I think that is a very great move. Kudos to the Federal Security Council for making that move. I love it. However, the funds will do no good if there are corrupt entities in it that will prevent the appropriate usage of these funds. So it's not about allocating the fund. That is good. It's about follow up and making sure the right people with the right knowledge can use these funds to curb the actual situation we are having. So I think it's actually a great move, and I see nothing wrong with it.
So do you think the Nigerian government can solely fund the treatment without assistance from other nations like the US?
Yes, I strongly think the federal government of Nigeria can fund, like I said before, the federal government of Nigeria was subsidizing billions of dollars in capital letters for fuel subsidy. So we have about 1.3 or so million Nigerians living with HIV. We have about more than 200 million of Nigerians in this country. So we are having, 3 million Nigerians living with HIV. If the government can meet up, find a structural understanding for a fund allocation, just the way we did for the fuel subsidy, they can give a form of subsidy that allocates millions and even billions of dollars, as the case may be, to actually curb this disease. It's something the federal government can do. So I would say, yes, Nigeria can actually curb HIV in the country if we actually want to do it, because we have tools that we can deploy to do it. Thank you.
General Practitioner Dr. Brown-Bless, thank you for lending your thoughts on the program.
Thank you so much, Oge. It's nice to be here. Thank you.
And that's a wrap for our program today. Thank you for watching, and see you again next time.